Welcome to this explainer. Today we're firing up the time machine and heading all the way back to the year 1898. We're going to explore a very specific snapshot in time, literally, a single year in the life of the Carringer family, who lived in the Brooklyn Heights neighborhood of San Diego. And you know, what's so absolutely fascinating about looking at history through the lens of just one family is that it takes these grand, abstract historical eras and grounds them in something we all understand. It's that incredibly universal journey of building a life, starting a family, and creating a home.
Okay, let's dive into this. 17,000. That was the entire population of San Diego in 1898. Now, if you know San Diego today as this sprawling, bustling metropolis, that number really puts things into perspective, right? I mean, this was a deeply, intimately scaled city. It was actually recovering from a massive real estate bust in the late 1880s, slowly rebuilding itself into a community where neighbors literally knew everyone on their block. It is just the perfect backdrop for our story.
Section 1. Meet the Carringers, San Diego, 1898.
So, our household is anchored by 44-year-old Austin Carringer and his wife, Della. By this point, they had been married for nearly 11 years. At the absolute center of their world is their 6-year-old son, Lyle, who was just a bright, incredibly curious boy. Rounding out the home is Della's mother, Abby Voss Smith, a 54-year-old widow who brought decades of rich stories with her from back east. Oh, and the family ties in this neighborhood were seriously strong. During this exact same year, Austin's elderly parents and his 45-year-old brother, Harvey, actually moved to San Diego and built a house just a block north. Talk about keeping family close.
But, well, to truly understand this family, we have to look past what's visibly printed on a census record. The Carringers carried this quiet, lingering grief of losing their firstborn son, DeVere David. He passed away as a 9-month-old infant back in 1890. By 1898, this loss had settled into a profound, heavy memory that fundamentally shaped how they lived. It made them fiercely protective of their slight 6-year-old boy, Lyle. And profoundly, this tragedy actually shifted their whole worldview. They lost their faith in God and instead channeled literally all their energy into doing good deeds for their community.
Section 2. Building the Family Homestead. The Journey to Watkins Avenue.
Let's move to and see how this builds, because this definitely wasn't an overnight process. The dream actually started in 1894 when Della purchased 9 empty lots. For 3 long years, while renting elsewhere in the city, they saved and they planned. Austin would carefully set aside lumber and hardware from his day job. Finally, a building permit was issued in June of 1897, and by the new year of 1898, the family had finally moved into their brand new 2-story frame house, perfectly positioned to face the avenue, just exactly like they had envisioned.
Okay, I just have to pause and highlight this number from the historical records. $600. That was the cost listed on the building permit taken out in Della's name for their residence. Now, the land itself cost $450 back in 1894, but the actual home construction permit was just $600. It is such a delightfully jarring historical contrast when you think about modern real estate prices in Southern California today. No way you're getting anything for that now.
But what makes this house truly a home is that Austin built this 2-story structure with his own 2 hands. Just imagine standing in that yard in 1898, taking in the sharp, piney smell of newly cut lumber and fresh wet paint. Austin was a highly skilled carpenter, and he took immense, deep pride as a craftsman in doing all the finish work himself. So this wasn't just a shelter, right? It was a lovingly handcrafted family homestead that ended up anchoring the Carringers for nearly half a century.
Section 3. Work, School, and Play. Daily Life in 1898.
So Austin's daily commute is actually a perfect window into the era. Each morning, he would either harness up his horse-drawn surrey or simply walk over to 16th and Broadway. From there, he'd catch the trolley down to 1st and I Streets for his job at the Rust Lumber and Mill Company. His days were filled with exacting, really demanding physical labor. Lumber was arriving daily by ship and rail to fuel San Diego's slow, steady growth. And Austin's job was to cut and plane that wood for the builders who were literally reshaping the city's grid.
Meanwhile, back at the homestead, little 6-year-old Lyle was being kept very close. Because he was a slight boy, and obviously because of the tragic loss of his older brother years prior, his parents initially protected him by educating him right there at home, before he eventually enrolled at the local Sherman School. You can so easily picture their evenings, right? Della, who is a former art teacher, patiently guiding Lyle through his basic arithmetic and literacy, while Grandma Abby sat nearby spinning these captivating stories of her own girlhood back east.
But hey, it wasn't all just hard work and school books. The Carringers absolutely knew how to have a good time. Fun fact, before they were married, Austin and Della were actually the stars of local theatrical plays back in Wano, Kansas. And that love for culture and performance absolutely carried over into their lives in California. Their entertainment was so rich and varied. They likely caught traveling theatrical troupes and band concerts in the park. Weekend outings involved horseback and buggy rides out into the undeveloped countryside. And, this is my favorite part, Austin even owned a bicycle, which means the family was right in the thick of the massive nationwide 1890s bicycle craze.
Of course, daily life doesn't happen in a vacuum. In April of 1898, the Spanish-American War broke out, and for a city with a massive natural harbor like San Diego, coastal defense and the Pacific Fleet took on immediate, absolute, urgent importance. The local papers were completely dominated by the headlines, and you can bet that national events powerfully intersected with daily life. The progress of the war was undeniably the main topic of conversation among Austin and the other carpenters down at the lumber mill.
Section 4. Reconstructing the past. Fact versus creative interpretation.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we have to separate hard historical evidence from the narrative tissue that binds it all together. The author of our source material used hard documented facts, census records, the 1894 land purchase, that $600 building permit, Austin's exact employer, and the heartbreaking loss of infant DeVere. But to truly bring the past to life, a historian has to use careful, creative interpretation. The exact conversations Austin had at the mill about the war, the specific buggy rides they took on a sunny Sunday afternoon. These are educated reconstructions meant to give texture to the dry facts. It's how we bridge the gap between a dusty piece of paper in an archive and a living, breathing family.
So the crucial takeaway here is this. History isn't just about presidents and generals signing treaties. It's about people like Austin, Della, Lyle, and Abby building a life on a street corner in San Diego. Which leaves me with this thought for you. Think about it. If a historian looked at your family's modern time capsule, your permits, your receipts, your digital footprint, 100 years from now, what story would they tell about the home you are building today? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and definitely keep exploring the history right in your own neighborhood.